thank you for helping us observe on the day of International Women's Day, March 8th, which has been around for quite a while, 112 years. So in Europe, this is where it started. We can thank our European friends. It's it's a celebration of achievements of women in all fields, all over the world. It's an opportunity to take action. You can go to the next slide if you want. Opportunity to take action now on gender equity. Those of us soccer fans are well aware that the U.S. Women's National Team has kind of helped highlight that. Go to the next slide. And this is expanded worldwide. So it's we're doing this all over the world today, and it belongs to all groups. So it's not just you see good representation here right in this room, more representation online, and so we're here to sort of celebrate achievements. But let's go to the next slide. The theme this year, we're going to embrace equity, and we should imagine. So our thought experiment here is to imagine a world where we have gender equality, we're free of bias and stereotypes and discrimination. Our world is diverse, inclusive, and equitable, and differences are valued and celebrated. Next slide. So, now this is the fun part. So, Ms. Gilday and I worked together a little bit in NAVFAC headquarters, and she had a big challenge. But before that, she's a mother of two fine young men, 28 years as a military spouse, and let me just pause to say it takes a supportive spouse and family to build and maintain the world's finest Navy. I mean, it does not happen without what I would argue is my ComNav house land at home and my kids and their support. And, moving ain't easy, and deployments are not easy, and that's all part of it. And the sacrifices that you've made, ma'am, and that many other spouses and families make. I mean, that's really big. That's how we're as good as we are. She's a Yellow Jacket from Georgia Tech in mechanical engineering, and has a really impressive array of job responsibilities, including work with Florida Power and Owens Corning Fiberglass, Mobil Oil. So you see a lot of very industrial type facilities. She was with the Logistics Management Institute's Facilities and Infrastructure Management for a number of years, and she's been with NAVFAC as a project manager, program manager, and with Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Installations, Energy, and Environment. Most recently, back with NAVFAC headquarters as a Senior Executive Service Program Manager for the Shipyard Infrastructure Optimization Program, which, as many of us know, is a giant and critical effort. I don't know if you would say the number's over $30 billion now, but it's multi-billion-dollar program focused on the 4 public shipyards primarily, and really a monumental effort to overhaul those national strategic assets so that we can do nuclear maintenance for submarine force and our aircraft carriers. And if you don't know, the entire schedule of the Navy revolves around nuclear maintenance schedules, and so those shipyards and their ability to do the repairs that are needed, to do the overhauls required is critical to our presence worldwide, and being able to keep the bad guys at bay. And it's, I think, that there isn't anything that could be more reflective of the importance of Naval Facilities Engineering Systems Command authorities and technical responsibilities as the shipyard optimization program. So, and I didn't mention, in addition to all those other capabilities, is that you're also a 1993 graduate of the Harvard Kennedy School in Management and Public Administration. So lots of credential, but more importantly, lots of capability. And I've really enjoyed, and she's a really nice person. So,
that's the best part.
but so I really appreciate you making the time to come here and to talk with us and maybe share some of your experiences. And really, this is about the thing I didn't say is that that's important is she helped to develop this program of women in the Navy. First, to honor the first women. These are military and civilian women in the Navy that starting back with World War I, who serve with honor, humility, and fortitude and sacrifice, and to inspire others, whether that be other women in the workforce or young children, and provide examples of people who look like themselves. So women like you and some sitting around the room that are, hey, I see myself. I see myself in the organization. I see myself in a position of leadership. And so what you've done to date, and then also sharing those really amazing stories of people like Captain Wendy Lawrence or Admiral Lori Aguayo. And if you get on the Women in the Navy website that's on the slide here, I did a little poking around on that. It's a great site. So really impressive bios, lots of inspiring stories and examples there for all of us to take stock and look at what right looks like. So, ma'am.
Well, gosh, what a really nice introduction. Thank you so much. Thank you to those of you that thought of having this celebration today and bringing everybody together. I'm sure you're sort of thinking, oh, about all that work you've got left at your desk. But thanks for taking a minute to come and do your part in celebrating International Women's Day. Thank you to those of you who are here, men and women alike, and to whoever's joining in online. You've stolen a lot of my thunder already, but that's okay. That's okay. So as you said, International Women's Day is a time to celebrate for international, across the globe, not just in the U.S., but across the globe, the achievements of women in a lot of different areas, the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements that have been made. But it's also a call to action to do more. And so this day, March 8th, comes right in the middle of Women's History Month, which is a whole month, first to the end of March, that is done here in the U.S. and also in the UK and Australia. But today is International Women's Day, so I thought I would talk a little bit about who some of those international women are that inspire me, and maybe get some audience participation and see if you can think of some that have inspired you along your journey. You women I'm speaking to right now. So let's start with that. So let me first say the achievements that have been made by women over the last, I'm going to say my lifetime, my sort of professional lifetime, have really been significant in so many ways. And I think we all work very hard at what we do. I mean, there's no question about that, right? We are all so focused on, at NAVFAC, we're focused on our NAVFAC life and what we do and how to make that better. But if you think outside of that, in your other areas that you participate in with your family or, on your iPod or whatever, think of like the music and the political and the newscast journalism. Think of how much women have accomplished in each one of those fields. And what I've started to do this month is to take 3 in each field, and so it's on my Instagram account. You can see, but I'm trying to really focus that on just on the American women. So right now, I'm gonna, without even saying who my 3 are, I'm gonna pick you since you have a nice smile. Who do you think that's you? Karen. Who is a woman, an international woman that has inspired you? Think about to when you started working and you saw somebody on TV, or you heard about somebody running for office. If somebody doesn't come right to your head, you can pass to somebody else. You get to pick who to pass to. We're going to go kind of slow with this, but pass to somebody who you think might have a.
Personally, ma'am, I would probably say I would Michelle Obama, because I can relate to her, and I see her as a woman and as a black woman, and if she's able to achieve that, then anyone can.
That's a great one. Yeah, she's definitely on my list of people I'm celebrating this month.
Angela Merkel.
Angela Merkel, she's one of my 3. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just, she's not necessarily the first female in global politics, but she's made a big impact within Germany, but also within global, the global politics as a whole, and just kind of the stuff that she did, and never take no for an answer. Very, can be polarizing at times, but I think she did it when she needed to be.
Strong, steadfast,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what direction she was going, she's somebody you can look and go, I can take some of that in what I do, right? Who would be somebody you would?
I was going to say Senator Duckworth.
Senator Duckworth, right. Somebody who can come back from war and be as disabled as she is, run for Congress, have children while she's in Congress. Like, wow. That's,
And feed those children.
Yes.
Like, while serving.
Yeah, amazing. How about overseas outside of the U.S.?
On a similar note, based on where I am in my life, Jacinda Ardern, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, crossed my mind because she also had a baby as a Prime Minister. Which is pretty cool.
Amazing. Also, yeah. How about, I'll say, yes, sir.
Mine's going to be inspired by women.
Of course.
I really,
If you're smart, you will.
growing up, I was always inspired by Margaret Thatcher.
That's that's the second of my three. Me too.
Yeah, I thought just the way she handled herself, and I feel like she was a real trailblazer back in the day, especially with British Parliament and what she did on the world stage and partnering with the United States to help end communism. So I just always appreciated her steadfast leadership.
That's neat. That's really neat. Thank you for jumping in as a meal participant.
We do have, let's see who's.
Who else?
Some
Yeah.
interest
let's-
online.
Yep. I'm not sure who's first, but I see Shondon Martin, please.
Yes, I was inspired. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I was inspired by Dr. Shirley Ann Jackson. I had no idea that she was one of the first African American women that were served as a chairman of the U.S. Navy Regulatory Commission role, and she was also pretty much kind of had something to do with the touch-tone phone. So just to find that out and know that was very inspiring. I know a woman had part of that action and that type of invention. So
Wonderful. Who's next?
Jennifer Murnane had her hand up.
She can't unmute. Okay, so, but please go ahead and type your comment in and I'll read it.
And while you're typing it in, I'll say who my third is. Christian Amanpour.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So she is part British and part Iranian, and so she inspires me just by her, being in a traditional male, journalism world and doing it with grace and with not a lot of emotion, and but yet gets to the story. So. I'm sure everybody in here's got an answer right, and I don't know that we have time to get to everybody unless this
So
lady.
Jennifer said all NASA women in mathematics.
NASA, absolutely. The
A movie
Codebreakers.
comes to mind. Yeah.
Yes,
Agree.
yeah.
Grace Hopper.
Grace Hopper for sure. So she's in our WIN representation.
And I had two bookends too. I have Mother Teresa and Madeleine Albright.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. So, well, let me get in and tell you thus far if you go on my Instagram, you'll be able to see it. So I've posted 3 of each. I won't break the news of who they are, but you can be thinking. This is a fun activity, right? It's a dinner time conversation with your kids to keep it. So who are the musicians? Who are the journalists? Who are the ladies in the legal profession? The comedians, the actresses, adversity transcenders. That's kind of a tough one. I'll tell you who I put in there. I put Helen Keller, Maya Angelou, and Eleanor Roosevelt. Because that's not a common
So
category.
I actually, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, a friend of mine's 6-year-old son for last month did a presentation on Maya Angelou, and he was pretty funny. They ended up building a bird cage, and with the bird and put her face on it from her book and stuff. And it was a great discussion, and it was really interesting to see.
It's really for me to think about for my own self. Who are the top 3 in these categories? I spend a lot of time every night kind of going through and reading up, and it's really fun to do. I was in Staples the other day, and although I don't like this language, they had a book, Bad Girls Honoring Women. the title of it, well, bad. I just
Yeah.
don't like bad and I don't like girls. But anyway, there is a whole book of other inspired things. There's plenty of, stories out there. So what are some of the things that these ladies on the international scale, since that's who we're talking about today, what are some things in common that they have? Yes, ma'am.
They have courage. If you look at the number of British women, French women who were either code breakers or spies who went behind enemy lines during World War II, I mean, that took intestinal fortitude and guts. They had a sense of service and selflessness.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, service, and they were very brave.
Absolutely.
And just wouldn't take no for an answer. Yeah. Anybody else?
Not easily discouraged. My first supervisor, a woman that went to Georgia Tech, chemical engineer, she went in to get help lunch from a professor. The professor was like, "Oh, honey, why are you sticking with this? Right? Switch." And then her father was a chemical engineer, and then when she graduated with her degree and got a job, he was shocked. She's like, "What are you doing? Why are you getting a job?" And she was, "Well, why would I go through all this trouble?" But her professor's father, all people thought that she would just give up.
That is something I hear a whole lot, and reach after this long of a career. People ask me that. Good friends of mine even ask me that all the time. Like, why? It's odd to me that people would ask that question. Why are you staying with it? What are you what are you doing? I think so. To answer that question, if anybody's wondering, for somebody else, you work for many reasons. You work to have that selfless service that you mentioned. You work because you're trained to do it. You work because you want to be financially independent. You work because you want to train yourself. You want to learn. You want to contribute. You want to, be a part of that bigger pie that makes life more wonderful. The whole diversity inclusion part that you mentioned, Captain. We're wanting to do that. I think a lot of women are. Certainly, all of you that are here today are. And so, I think we all just have to know how rich of a effort that it is when you have more people of diversity perspectives in whatever you're trying to do. So a little bit about me. I have worked a third. I've worked a third in the private sector, a third nonprofit, and a third for the Navy. And so it's been a wonderful career, and I've seen some threads, and I've seen some challenges, and I've seen that we still have a long way to go in many areas. But I am very heartened by the fact that I certainly look at this room. There's almost half and half, male and female. So how awesome is that we've gotten our seat at the table. We're sort of represented now, not always, but for the most part. And I think now I want to challenge everybody to sort of move to that 2.0. What is 2.0? Well, 2.0 means kind of the next phase of things. I mentioned a little bit to you on the phone, ma'am. That for me, what that means is I'm speaking to the women now, mind you, sorry. Let's take the things that make us uniquely women and bring that to the table. What I mean by that is bring your intuition, bring your honest self to the meeting. Don't feel like you're to the effort. Don't feel like you have to be a man. You're not. You're unique. You've got your own skills, your own perspective, and as long as it's professional and it's being done in a manner that's meant for good, bring yourself to the table. Nobody ever really said that to me, but I see a lot of times right now after 40 years of work where I wish that I had done that more. And some of the ladies that I have admired along the way were ones that did that in their own unique way. And so I just want to throw that out, that I think we're kind of ready for that now that we've got representation at the table to kind of go that next step and bring your whole self to the group in meetings. If there's something that you're like, that just doesn't seem right to me, say it. Or if you think you could have a better conversation with a particular person offline, that you could get to the heart of the matter that isn't necessarily appropriate for the big group meeting, go do that. Don't feel constrained by the old way that things have been done.
Right.
So anyway, that's my challenge to you, and I want to also just put that into like specifics. So I said, okay, let's say if I had 5 specifics, what would they be? So one of them is takeaways. One of them is to spend 10 minutes a week. All of you can do this, men and women. Spend 10 minutes a week and study somebody that will inspire you. And so obviously the women, I'm talking about women. Men, you can pick Margaret Thatcher and people like that and bring it up and make that your challenge to the women that you work with. Those are the people that have inspired you, and I think that'll be appreciated too. But anyway, spend about 10 minutes a week and just think to yourself, let me go study either your coworker that you're working next to that does something that you think is wonderful, or somebody on TV. Write them a letter. You'd be amazed. People still read actual handwritten letters. My husband does a lot, and he responds to them, and so other people will too. You might not think they'll get them, but they will. So spend 10 weeks to do that. Second one is to observe leaders, and we all do that already, right? We all listen to our managers, but think to yourself, who are the women leaders out there, and really observe them. You might have heard of this thing called the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. And then my next part is be inspired by that. But spend some time studying leaders and thinking of how that can help you be a better person. Expand your own friend group. So when I first started out, I didn't have time for friends, really. I didn't. I mean, I just work. And I just didn't have a lot of friends outside of my own work. But what a rich life it's been now that we've moved around so much, and I have kind of been forced to make friends in different places. How neat it is to have a friend just in some completely different orbit from what you normally go in. It'll just really enrich your lives. Don't be too hard on yourself is my next one. And then finally, have patience. So those are the things I'm going to say to all of you. But if I had more than 5, I would add, I do have a few more. You don't have to live somebody else's life. Whoever you look at and you say, I really admire that person, that's who I'm going to model myself after, you'll never be that person. You're uniquely you. We are all one of a kind in whatever, God made one of us. There's not 2. Even if you have a twin, they're still different, And so be your own unique self. Take little bits of different people and add that to your wheel of goodness. Pray. Pray is a good thing. Hopefully you find some time. If you don't, just close your eyes and meditate. But praise a good thing. Pray quietly, or with somebody if you have somebody that you can do that with. Be determined that things are gonna get better. They're never gonna stay the same. One of my favorite things is Tom Hanks, and he had a thing on the other day that said time will heal that. And so I really do think time is a healer. You got to be patient and be determined, but know that through more time things will happen or they won't. And also just have fun in your lives at work here at NAVFAC. So those are my thoughts. And I know we have time for questions.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm willing to take those. We talked about doing, pre-written questions, and I didn't think that would make as lively of a conversation, nor would it look as transparent, which I try to be. So I want to just open that up to however we're going to do Q&As, and then and also just say right up ahead of time, if there's something that you want to ask me about individually outside of a big group, I'm open to that. Send me a note, poke me as I'm leaving, whatever, and I'm happy to to address some individual thing that you might have that you might want to go to the group with. So who wants to go first? How are we going to do this?
It doesn't matter. Eric, you kind of have your...
So I didn't want to cut Gail off, but so Captain Hahn mentioned that you were the SES in charge of PSYOP.
Actually, a couple things. One is not SES. It was an HQE assignment, but I didn't want to interrupt you,
Okay.
and so that's okay.
So if you could have snapped your fingers back then, what is the one thing that you would have changed? And then if you were in that position today and you could snap your fingers, what is the one thing you'd change? Now you wish we'd written the questions down.
No, but this is a, you know,
That's a hard one.
that's a hard one. So in that program, it's not one that has been there, 10, 20, 100 years. And so things are evolving as it goes along, and a lot of money's being spent. There are a ton of stakeholders involved. Congress, every office that is somebody over in the Pentagon, they're all involved. We've got this big executive council, and it's just very complex. There's a lot to it. So they make the phrase, we're building the plane as we're flying it. And everybody probably has had a job like that they felt they were doing that. It's a blended organization with a number of CNIC, NAVC, NAVFAC. So there's just a whole lot of involved people. You could never skinny it down to just one organization and you guys run with the problem. It's just very complex. It's not a problem, but run with the solution. We tried for quite some time, even when you were there, sir, to clarify the roles and responsibilities. In fact, I often tell people I worked for 9 months on the letter, 9 months to get a 5-page letter on roles and responsibilities. I think that'd have to be my answer, is find a way to clarify that sooner. And even right now, it's not completely clear all the way down to the field. So I think roles and responsibilities would be the thing that I would have done both then and now.
That really makes sense. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I had an interesting conversation with a master chief last week at a training, and most chiefs are male and master chiefs, and the conversation was about retention of females in the Navy. And how do we help these men? My daughter's a chief. She's had 4 kids, and she's now sea duty. So she's figured out that I can be a mom and still be considered a good mom, even though I leave my kids home with my husband. And he said, from a male perspective, he struggles with having that conversation as a master chief, counseling his sailors to go through the various promotion boards, because women do have to go to sea. And we are still taught. I mean, my daughter's 40. She has 4 kids, 5 to 18. Mom, I'm going to miss Christmas this year. It's my second Christmas I've missed. I'm a bad mom. No, you're not a bad mom. Look at what you're doing. Look at a role model you are for your children. So how do we, tell all of the women and the men in these rooms that a woman going to sea and deploying is not a bad mother. Men are as responsible parents as women are, but that it's okay to stay in the Navy, it's okay to go to sea, and you can have a career.
Right. So I've met some of the ladies that you're mentioning on board ships that are out there for months on end, that their kids are at home, and I'm just like, wow, how do you do this? How do you do this? It's so amazing. I mean, they have to have a good support system to make it happen, whether it's one child or more than one. It's a really hard thing, but look how wonderful it is that they're able to do. If they have that support system, and believe me, there's plenty of women out there that don't have it, and I don't even know how they're doing it. But you have to have a good support system. I think women's guilt is not a new thing. Like, we have it. We just do. Men do too. I mean, let's face it. But I think women, we feel like we've got to do, be so many different roles, so many of the traditional roles, plus so many of the new ones. And it's really hard. It's really, really hard. I think the men that are leading the organizations have to say, we just thank you so much. You got to just continue to say thank you, and we're glad you're here. We're glad you're part of the team, and women have to make that call, whether it's right for them. I have a friend who told me when I first had kids, thinking, okay, at that point I had 2 little ones. Is it worth it to go back or not? Do I, I'm not sure about this daycare, and just wrestling with all that, like I'm sure some of you have. And she said, you can have it all. You just can't have it all at once, which I think is a good saying. And whether that's in a day's time or a year's time, every little thing's not going to be perfect all day long. You've just got to make some sacrifices along the way, and hope that it works without being at that level of perfection that you think. So, did I answer your question? How do we get the men to encourage them, or how do we get the women to feel it's okay?
I think a little bit of both, yes.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, what do you do with a 40-year-old halfway around the world crying because she's leaving her kids at Christmas, and that means she's an awful mom? Or, filling everybody's own experience. You're not an awful mom. They have a father. He is there with them. He's your husband.
Mm-hmm.
He's supposed to help support you. And, oh my God, women in the military, there still aren't as many of them as I personally think there should be. And certainly not in roles of leadership and responsibility. And quite frankly, anybody who goes to service on a ship or a submarine or whatever is doing a tremendous service to this country. But they're also setting a huge example of giving of yourself to support a lifestyle that we all have become accustomed to.
Yeah. I don't know the right answer. It is a challenge. I appreciate you bringing it up.
When he said, how do I explain to a woman that she's still a good mom,
But I think it goes back to, ma'am, what you were saying is he needs to show support.
Yeah.
Is that support and making sure that not only him, but the rest of the department or the command is providing support to all those sailors.
So I think for me, I would say that it can start with as simple as we have male members in our unit, and there are, for instance, when a civilian or military is expecting, make it a priority to go with your wives to the appointments, and it's not this like, oh, paternity leave. That's what's that about? It's like no, that's important. That's really important, and to that's okay. Like do that. That I have said for years, the best job description I will ever have is dad. Right. So that's not just like a reward. It's also like, yep, it's changing them diapers. It's like doing what you can, because frankly, like, we men are kind of useless as it relates to the first at the very beginning, unless there are those things. Once the baby is born, now you can finally start to contribute. All right, take an active role, be the bath guy, be the the diaper guy. I mean, I know that sounds silly, but these are some of the things that I think as men or women and men talk to the other men, and those are kind of simple things. It's like no, this is a team, and so I don't know if that delivers immediately what we need, but those are small things. It's like, no, this is really important, and you're not you're doing what you should. There's no higher calling, I don't think, than parenting. I mean, it's crazy that you don't need a license to be a parent. Right? I mean, anybody like let's take a picture,
Right.
something
It's
like
no
that.
instruction book at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We have parents.
We also have a question in the chat.
Yes.
Do you want to read the question in the chat?
I actually am not seeing it.
It says how can one submit a nomination for someone to be on the Women in Navy page?
Well, that's great, and I didn't talk too much about that, and unfortunately, we're like a week or two away from publishing the next edition with about 100 new women in it. So I'm very happy about that. There'll be a yes. I don't know what the total number is, but yeah, it's up in the hundreds.
It's a permanent list that
It's a permanent list, yeah.
Yes,
And
it's
so,
added to.
it's like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Good.
Right? Once you're in, you're in.
exactly, except it's just civilians and military women. It's not spouses and other people that support the Navy, although if we wanted to, we could build that, but right now, we're just still building that initial list. And so the answer to how do you submit it, you go right online and do it, or you send me an email, or you send Commander Courtney Hilson an email. She is the Public Affairs Officer for the CNO's office, and she's been actually collecting a big long spreadsheet of the ladies and like what their contact information is, or if they're deceased, you know, how do we find them, what their photo is, what their little paragraph of what their trailblazing accomplishment is, and who submitted their name. So she's keeping the master, her office is.
Okay.
So that would be the best way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Shondon, you have your hand up?
Yes, ma'am. I was going to contemplating on just basically back at what the CEO just said, and it brought me back to a memory to kind of touch bases. I thought not to speak and share it, but I think it needs to be shared. I was dual enlisted with me and my wife. I was a YN1, she was LS1, and she got stationed on the USS Comfort out of Baltimore Harbor, and they went out to the humanitarian relief that happened in Samoa and when the earthquake happened. So we just had children, and we had twins, and they were 18 months old, and I got stuck because I was working in the Pentagon, and I also used to always tell my wife, well, how is it so hard to get the kids at daycare and take care of them? So you see what this is doing. So I was always working late in the Pentagon because of my duty as a yeoman, and then she was kind of stuck getting off from Naval Observatory, going to pick up the kids, having them at home first, and I didn't show up till like 2000 at night, you know, and I'm thinking, well, what was the big deal that she was stuck with children? So I got stuck for 3 months, and I would never, ever, ever say anything about how you have to multitask from work to the next action to the next action. And by the way, I had twins, 18-month-old twins, boy and girl, and I had to figure out how to get them to daycare. Daycare was gracious. I didn't know the plan my wife had set up. I had to have them at daycare at 0500. Daycare didn't open to 6, but they had a plan with my wife because we had to drive from Stafford, Virginia, into DC. So they would open up early. One lady had a plan with my wife to open up early, an hour early, take our kids, drive to work, stay at work, negotiate with my boss at the time, commander, that let me get off so I could be back down, pick them up, so I would really pay a late fee, and then figure out dinner, bathing, you know, when they would go to bed, when I go to bed, and redo it all over again for 3 months. And by the way, I got stuck in a snowmageddon, so daycare got cut off. Because, and I got stuck at home for about a latter part of that, with the children at home, working from home, and not having daycare. So I had to do it all. So just to attest to, I think, and I want to say the strength of women and what they have to do that we think we're doing, we're nowhere close. So I just want to take my hat off to women and my experience to shut my mouth, to understand what women and how much more they do than I thought I did. That's my personal experience. So
Awesome story.
That's so nice of you to share that perspective. You know, if you're 20 years away from it like I am, it's like yesterday, man. I know exactly what you're talking about. Those early years are so hard when they're learning how to walk and they're all over the place, and oh my gosh, those are hard times.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you for being there to allow your wife to serve and do what she needed and wanted to do, and inspiring the other men that, hey, you know, we always think we understand, but maybe we don't. Maybe we can, you know, give some grace to somebody who needs it today and who might be in those shoes. Yeah.
You're welcome, and trust me, we don't understand.
So ma'am, listening to your bio, you've done a lot, you're doing a lot. So as a woman in leadership, how did you do or maintain work-life balance? Because I find that very challenging sometimes.
It is easy peasy now that my kids are grown. No, really, it is. You just prioritize, and I have a really busy life outside of the normal 8-hour day, and vice. I mean, I just I make it a priority to keep. I think of myself, at least I don't know where I am these days because everybody changed. I think of myself as an extrovert, and so I have a lot of friends that I call at nights and moving all around as we all do. You know, most of your friends are not next door; they're, you know, a phone call away. So there's a lot of texting, laughing, sending people, you know, funny things that come across, or sharing a new song, just things like that. Being real busy on the weekends. So. Did that answer your question? Just knowing that there's always some fun thing to learn. I mean, look at your phone. There's so much coming across. Like, wow, let me learn how to do that. This new resin thing. That's what I'm going to learn next. Have you seen those wooden things? And there's resin that looks like it's the ocean coming in. I want to learn how to do that. Anyway. Anybody else?
Bill.
As we talk about promoting equity and reducing or eliminating bias, have you come across in all you talked about your thirds, what were previously unrecognized biases that were discovered as a result of working through situations that you know, maybe we just don't, by definition, we don't know we have these, but if we knew we had them and we could learn from other people who discovered they had them, we could be proactive in eliminating those instead of waiting for something to blow up and then discover we had this bias.
So I attended this thing called Federal Executive Institute in Charlottesville. So like a 1-month thing, and I took actually a class on this diversity, equity, inclusion. I'm like, what is this going to be like? I know what this is all about. I'm not going to learn anything. Well, guess what? It's a thing, and unconscious bias is just realizing however you were born, you know, whatever little, you know, when you were in elementary school and kindergarten and all that, you know, you just were taught a certain thing about the people that, you know, how you related to your family, how people taught your friends in school, you know, just think about that. That is what shaped you as a person. Like one guy, for example, well, I don't want to divulge anybody's thing, but everybody goes through stuff that you just can't imagine, you know, and you just have to, instead of just listening to what people are saying, you have to actually just open your mind and realize that they are coming from a different perspective. They're coming from a different part of the world, a different time frame, a different family background that supported them or that is supporting them, or some particular challenge that might be going on in their life right now. Everybody's got a unique situation, and so just instead of sitting there going, all right, that's the note taker, that's the boss, that's the secretary, that's the analyst, you know, instead of just putting everybody in boxes, just kind of opening up and realizing this is a parade of colors of different experiences in here, and I'm just going to be open to it and not like an old person. Like, let's say, this will be easy. If you're in a wheelchair, well, that person's old and they can't walk. Well, there could be a whole lot more to it than that, you know, so that's just one example of boxing somebody in with how they look or how you think of whatever's going on. You just have to be open to, there's more here than your eyes will see.
And you're also speaking to, you have to actively work at self-examination and your own bias, because I don't know how many times I've heard, I'm not a sexist. And I said, I don't think you're meaning to be.
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't a good look, you know, or maybe think about how that's coming across. And so, yeah. So I think it's an active process. You know I have my own biases as well. And you have to actively work at examining your own bias and how that is affecting your judgment, especially if you're involved in hiring.
Oh, yeah. Because there are all those rules that go along with it.
So I always focus on interviews. I tell people, if I'm the EEO, to focus on the content, not the person's tone of voice, not their not how quickly they speak or how slowly, or if they talk really high or if they talk really low. Focus on the content, and you just have to really actively make that effort. So
That's a good word. Be active about it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And if you just make that one, like if it's already not in a hiring situation, but if you're already in a group, like let's say we're all in a meeting about something, if you just like walk into get a soda or something, if you just make that one connection with somebody about, I like your earrings, where'd you get them? Or, like something, if you just have that one connection, it just opens the door to understanding somebody better,
We are people,
Yeah.
not just cogs.
Yeah.
Are there any more online? It looks like somebody departed.
Yeah,
Looks
I
like
think
people are.
we're
It's
close to
1300
one
p.m.
We're
and
at
close.
the time. Yeah,
Eric's
so-
Eric's got a
We've got a few people
negotiation.
So
Yeah.
thank you all for spending a whole hour, and what a great conversation this has been. Really appreciate it, and don't let this be the end of you celebrating women. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you.